friends, and thanks for that warm welcome. Always appreciate it, like I always like to say. Now, in today's video, we have a real surprise for you. Now, because we have some Labatt beer cans right over here, like this one here. Hey, now that's sitting over there on the so-called surface of the moon. Oh, have you seen anything like this here, dear friends? Labatt Genuine Draft. Well, that'll be the next one we're going to find, isn't it there? But we're going to show you anyways. We're going to show you some 1950s cars and some of these other beer cans and other anomalies here that our good friend Scott Henderson has found. So, without further ado, please take it away, Scott.
What you have to realize is when NASA started out to go to the moon, that was their intention. Their intention wasn't to do a simulation. I mean, any film director who set out initially to do a simulation of a moon landing, okay, would have complete control of the set, complete control of the actors, complete control of all the props and lighting effects and any atmospheric effects that they would have. That would be all planned and laid out and done. And of course, if you were going to do a series of 6 of them, you'd be shooting them back to back. NASA initially was going to the moon, and at some point in time, they decided that they couldn't fail. They had to prove that they were a superior nation in the Cold War. And when they decided to do the simulation, they were using the equipment that NASA had already produced, the sets that they were practicing on, and the props as well, the lander and the experimental packages and stuff like that. And of course, anyone producing and directing this thing also had to use the astronauts as well. They weren't actors. And as a matter of fact, any director would want to have complete control of the cameras. They didn't have control of the cameras. The astronauts had control of the cameras as well. And this is what has happened throughout these videos and the photos, that the anomalies are there. The astronauts intentionally wanted to show the fraud. They most likely were doing this for their 3 fallen comrades, Grissom, Chaffee, and White, and they were documenting this in these photographs. They probably weren't intended to be released to the media at any time. I mean, the initial photographs that were put out, there was maybe 2 or 3 dozen for each mission that were put up for magazines, newspapers, and other media events. And these other photographs were just simply archived, tucked away, and 25 years later, NASA wants to keep promoting their moon landing, and they started putting up the photographs online. They digitized them, put them up, and everybody looks at them and says, oh yeah, we landed on the moon. That's not what's in the photographs. What's in the photographs is the very detailed documentation of where it was actually shot, the equipment that was used, that it was the same equipment being used over and over again for all 6 missions when they were filming this. And when they weren't using it, it was just left lying outside on the ground. You can see the equipment aging with time through the 6 missions. If you're looking at particularly the experimental equipment, okay? And when it got so bad, then they had to replace it.
Yeah, so let me ask you something, Scott. You know, this is one of the things that I found really fascinating about this is when you look at some of these photographs, I mean, it appears that they're like old cars and old pieces of cars and stuff like that. And you told me something that really kind of blew me away about where NASA had originally set up to do some of these pictures, and that was in Flagstaff, right? And in particular, I believe you said that it was like in a junkyard in Flagstaff. Is that right?
Well, the landfill site's still there today. It's right on the southeast corner of Cinder Lake, and Cinder Lake is the moonscape that NASA recreated. On there, and that's where they were doing all the simulations. That's where Farouk Albez was training the astronauts to get their timing down, to familiarize them with the use of the equipment. It only makes sense that they would use a landfill site if they were going to create something. They already had the big earth-moving equipment there. Nobody would even notice that you're doing anything, even if you're flying over it. It just big equipment moving dirt around. So it was quite easy to create the set, and it's quite easy to remove it after you're done.
Well, thank you, Scott, for stopping by and giving us that discourse on how you can find beer cans and 50s cars and 60s cars and all kinds of stuff there on so-called moon. But as you can see here, there's no way that anything went to any moon, and that's a fact, Jack. So let's just get on to the next little clip here. Now, this is a real good one, folks, because this is just goes to show you how NASA works. Now, this one here, they're going to end up raiding a grandmother while she's having her dinner or lunch inside of a Denny's restaurant. So, watch this one here. It makes me sick. Oh, and it will make you sick too after you see what's coming. So, let's roll that clip, please.
A NASA SWAT team performs a sting operation and raids a 75-year-old grandmother, forcing her to defecate on herself in order to steal a piece of moon rock that was given to her by her late husband, who worked as an Apollo 11 engineer. Well, you can't make this stuff up, and when I saw these news reports hit the web, I didn't believe it at first. I had to research around and make sure that I wasn't reading from some sort of fake news website, or a joke website or something like that. But no, this is true. And it's so crazy that it's almost unbelievable that this nice older woman by the name of Joanne Davis, 75 years old, had fallen on some hard financial times after raising grandchildren and following her daughter's death and her son's illness. So she began to think of extra ways to make some money. And that's how this all started. So her husband, who has since passed away, was a man by the name of Robert Davis, who was an Apollo 11 engineer. He worked during the moon landings for NASA. And while he was there, he had saved and given to his wife a paperweight that featured a very tiny little crumb of moon rock, as well as a little piece of heat shield from the spacecraft itself. And so these moon artifacts and memorabilia were left to Joanne after her husband passed away. And like many struggling and falling on hard times, she thought to herself, well, maybe I can find someone who would appreciate this moon rock and this little piece of heat shield, and I can maybe earn a little bit of money for it. So she asked around, trying to see if anybody would be interested, and she didn't really get much reply. She contacted local auction houses, and even they weren't really interested, which is strange to me. But being a normal person with common sense, she decided, well, I'll call NASA, I'll get in touch with them, and I'll see if they might know of anybody who would like to buy the pieces. And so, unfortunately, that turned out to be the biggest mistake that she could have made. And instead of investigating and simply emailing Joanne back and telling her that it was illegal to sell moon rocks, which she didn't know, and I didn't know, and everyone I've spoke to didn't know that it was illegal to sell moon rocks, but apparently it is. So instead of telling her that, NASA set up an elaborate sting operation to nail this poor old woman, who in their eyes was some sort of elderly international moon rock smuggler, the elderly queen of the moon rock underworld. And so they went along with her, and she was excited that she was finally going to get some financial relief. And so when she and her new husband went to a local Denny's restaurant, she was met by a host of federal agents and police officers who forcibly restrained her and her husband, treating them as if they were some sort of Mexican cartel leader that had just been captured. This is a 75-year-old woman we're talking about here, who, by the way, lost control of her bladder during the fray, and so was humiliated further. She was forced to stand in the parking lot of the restaurant, pants soaked, and made to answer questions by the federal agents about this tiny little rice-sized piece of the moon. According to Joanne, the agents kept saying, quote, "You will be going to federal court you will be going to federal jail. And by the way, Mrs. Davis actually worked at NASA as well at the same time as her husband. And so here she is, 50 years later, being manhandled by the goons of the same organization that she worked for because someone on the inside made a mistake and wanted that moon rock back. And according to their lawyer, NASA, quote, did it in a way that would humiliate her. And, I can only say that once again, NASA never fails to surprise me. And, this just goes to show the true nature of these space agencies. You think they're all kitty cats and nice public figures and handshakes and putting a flag on the moon. No, these guys are thugs. These guys cover up stuff. These guys lie.
Now, dear friends, doesn't that make you absolutely sick? Oh, now how could a NASA come along and take what her husband has given to her all them years ago? Now, that's real bad. And you want to know the reason why NASA did it? It's because they have to get all their moon rocks back because they were all fake, just like this one is here. You see, that's the one that they were trying to get back off of the grandma now, right? And they know that if they don't get back every single one of them moon rocks, that they're gonna really be in the whoozagao this time because they're gonna find out that it's all fake. But NASA already knows they're all fake. That's the reason why they're trying to get them back, you see. Now, can you just imagine the big stir and the big stink that would cause if NASA ended up not getting all these here fake moon rocks back that were made in a kiln in Japan? Oh my God, it would start World War III now, wouldn't it there, friends, eh? But you can't tell Jeff Dave that, you can't tell Mysterio Mystery that, you can't tell that Luke S that, and you can't tell that crazy bunny of slackasses that either. Because those dudes are so arrogant and so blind they can't even see their hand in front of their cotton-picking faces anymore. Oh, terrible, terrible thing. I mean, can you really believe that, dear friends? These NASA dudes busting it's almost 80-year-old grandmother now? Holy frickin' smoke. Oh, does that ever take the cake, eh? Oh, yep, figures good old NASA for you, eh? Oh, they're always going to come around there and they're going to end up cleaning the whole society out pretty soon now, eh? If we don't stop it. Now, this really got to be put to a stop because NASA cannot go around harassing the elderly like us. Now, isn't that right there, friends, eh? That's terrible. Holy frickin' cow. I've never seen anything like this in my life, eh? Wowie, that takes the cake, and that takes the biscuit too now, don't it there, friends, eh? And we gotta do something to put a stop to this, because this is absolute bullshit. Don't you go telling us, slack ass, that this here is all just, well, it's all made up, and it's all in our heads, and that this here moon rock that was built in a kiln in Japan, all just perspective, because this not perspective here, mate. This here was made in a kiln in Japan, and NASA knows it. So they're going to try to get every one of these here rocks back so that the public can't test them, because if the public does, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh, NASA's are going to end up in the whoozagao along with those dudes that ended up robbing the train last week. They certainly did now. Oh, anyways, that's our spiel for today. You dudes all take care out there, and the dudes that are sending us viruses, well, you can take those viruses and you know where you can shove them. So, that's it for today. Mr. Strange and Expat Taffy out.